Hello and welcome to this week's episode of This Week in British History. My name is Philippa Lacey-Brule from British History Tours, and today we are looking at events which happened between the 1st and the 7th of June. If you love British history, you are definitely in the right place. So let's have a look at some of the things that happened in this week. The 1st of June, now it's either 1494 or 95 because the records aren't clear, is the first mention of Scotch whiskey. Scottish whiskey, which we now know as Scotch. And it's in the Exchequer rolls for Scotland. Brother John Core, who was a monk at Lindores Abbey, bought a quantity of malt in order to make aqua vitae, or the water of life, or otherwise now known as whiskey. Permission had been granted for him to do this by King James IV of Scotland, hence it was in the Exchequer rolls and therefore the first written down reference to whiskey. On the 1st of June 1935, a driving test was introduced in the UK. It came 32 years after the need for a licence to drive on the roads, but an increase in casualties made the idea that maybe we should test people before they get their licence a good idea. And at that point, there was 1.4 million cars on the road. Today, there are over 38 million cars or vehicles on the road in the UK. The 1st of June 1533 saw the coronation of Anne Boleyn. She was crowned queen, but queen regnant. She was the consort. She was queen by virtue of the fact that she was married to the king. Her coronation procession the day before had wound its way through the City of London to Westminster from the Tower of London, where she had previously been brought by with big pageantry from Greenwich Palace. This was a huge occasion to say, you know, this is your queen now. This is the wife of Henry, your king, and she is pregnant. So she is bringing to you the promised heir. This is going to bring peace. This is going to bring continuity to your leadership, to your monarchy. And so this is a great thing. At 9 a.m. on the 1st of June, the day of her coronation, Anne appeared in the Great Hall of Westminster Palace, decked with purple velvet, edged with ermine, and she walked over the blue carpeted trail or route, should I say, from the dais at Westminster Hall through to the high altar at Westminster Abbey. Anne was crowned with St Edward's crown, previously only ever used for the reigning monarch. And as I've already said, Anne was already pregnant. Now we know that was the future Queen Elizabeth I, and she was born on the 6th of September the same year. On the 2nd of June 1953, our current Queen, Queen Elizabeth II, took her coronation oath at Westminster Abbey. She had become Queen on the death of her father, George VI, who had died in February 1952. And the reason he had become King was because of another linked event in this week, the 3rd of June 1937, and Edward, Duke of Windsor, the former Edward VIII, married the woman who he turned his back on the throne for, the American divorcee Wallace Simpson. Edward had reigned for less than a year in 1936, but had turned his back on the throne in order to marry Wallace Simpson. So you will see on sort of cartoon depictions, say the rulers that you get with, our rulers that you get with all the monarchs on, and you'll see Edward is usually depicted as having his back to the viewer, and that is to signify effectively him abdicating, him turning his back on the throne. None of Edward's family attended the ceremony in France, and his mother, Queen Mary, actually took it as a slight because the date they chose would have been his late father's birthday. It was actually also in this week, the 5th of June 1972, that Edward was laid to rest after a ceremony at St George's Chapel, Windsor. He is laid to rest in the mausoleum at Frogmore. The 6th of June 1944 was D-Day. D-Day was the first day in Operation Overlord, the idea of which was to take over German-occupied Europe. Now, for ages I wondered what the D meant in D-Day, and it in fact just means day. So it's sort of day, or this is the day, because previous to that it would have been D minus 1 or whatever. So D-Day is basically the day of go. Now, on the day this video goes live, the 7th of June, it is the 500th anniversary of the beginning of the Field of Cloth of Gold summit. That was ostensibly a summit to celebrate peace between France and England, and it was held between Francis I of France and Henry VIII of England. And it got its name from the sumptuousness of the materials used in effectively what would be the most glamorous campsite you have ever seen. So Field of Cloth of Gold, almost literally, or probably literally in some points, and you had temporary buildings that were made to look as if they were permanent buildings, and you had the famous wine fountains. Famous if you've been to Hampton Court and you've seen the wine fountain in the court. If you look at the video, the Tudors at Hampton Court, you will see that wine fountain, and that is a replica based on the wine fountains that were at the Field of Cloth of Gold, which literally flowed with wine during the celebrations. It was an ostentatious display of wealth and almost one-upmanship from each side, to the point of just splendour and over-the-top wowness. Now, from the English's point of view, this summit was helping put Henry on a similar footing in Europe as his cousin Francis I, at least giving that impression anyway. Thank you all so much for watching this episode of This Week in British History. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please do hit subscribe. If I get to 1,000 subscribers, I'm going to do another mini series alongside this, which explains how we go from our monarchs, one and then to the next and then to the next, because it's never as easy as, or it's not often as easy as a eldest son route. So we are going to look at that in more detail, and I'm going to try and explain to you how we got from one to the other. So I will do that as soon as I hit 1,000 subscribers. So if you're not subscribed, please do that. Share this channel with other history lovers, friends who you think might enjoy it. I would really appreciate that. If you comment below, please do feel free to comment below, because I do answer all my comments. I will get around to everyone, I promise. But in the meantime, if you want to look me up on Facebook or Instagram, the links are in the show notes. But for now, take care, have a great week, and I will see you next time.